that, our main prayer as a family is, God, lead us closer to you, so that if you're at the center of this and we all get closer to you, guess what? We're all getting closer to one another as well. I think being vulnerable, being transparent with your kids, letting them see you struggle so they know it's okay to struggle. Like, if they don't have permission to struggle, I think it's a problem. And for what we have found, there's two good places for kids to struggle in a safe place. I think that's sports, and I think that's school. So that's what hurt. It's like I gave my entire life, like I've given my family's life to this. I've sacrificed. My family has sacrificed, and here we are, and you're just going to turn your back on me and kick me out. Really, where I got pissed off with God was when He told me no more youth ministry, and I think it was the way in which He told me, because it was through the use of, however you want to put it, I don't know the religiously correct way to say it, but it was through flawed humans within the church that door was shut on me, in my opinion. Dude, I wanted to take you out because now every single day from here on out is a day that I didn't have with my dad, and I want to treasure that, and I want to honor that. She encouraged me, like, hey, you've kind of outgrown this position, like, go find something else. And I just went on Indeed.com and I saw an ad, and it was between selling Lazy Boy recliners or this random job description that just said executive sales agent based out of a place at the airport. Ministry was really important to me throughout high school into college. I got a degree in theology in college, and then continued on to get a graduate degree, a master's degree in systematic theology.
Making big transition in life can sometimes be difficult, but there's not a lot of people that I have the chance of talking with who go from selling Jesus to selling jets. My guest today, Tom Lelyo, did just that. He went from working in a youth ministry to selling $1 million private jets. Tom, tell me about that transition, because I've never spoken with anyone else that went from working in a youth ministry, preaching, working with youth, and then transitioned into jets. That's not a very linear transition. So walk us through how that happened and why you made that decision.
For sure. Well, Alan, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. And you're absolutely right. It's definitely not something that I had on my radar in any way, shape, or form. It wasn't something I grew up saying I want to sell private jets. And it was definitely a little bit of a roller coaster. I guess it all kind of started, I grew up as a cradle Catholic. We always went to mass every single week, even though it was mostly, what I thought was just going through the motions. But really, when you look back, it's planting seeds. And so, I remember going to church. I was an altar server because I wanted to do something during church, and so I wanted to look like a Jedi with the robes. I would just kind of swing the ropes around and pretend it was like a lightsaber, and then hit my buddies, before we went on for mass. And my faith carried me through a lot, especially during high school. I mean, it's one of those formative times of your life. And for me, when I was a freshman in high school, I had lost my father. And I specifically remember being at church and turning to God as my father for that time. And so ministry was really important to me throughout high school into college. I got a degree in theology in college, and then continued on to get a graduate degree, a master's degree in systematic theology. And ministry was basically my life. And so my wife and I got married right out of college. We had met before college, went to the same college, got married out of college. And we knew that we were going to be, a single income family with ideas of having a large family, and we would be involved in ministry, and it would come with its own challenges. But we just, at that time, we just didn't care. We just felt like this is where we were supposed to be. And so we plowed ahead for over a decade. And that's actually how we ended up moving from Pennsylvania into Florida, because of a youth ministry position. And I worked in Florida for about 6 years, at various parishes in the area, and finally found myself where God was just like, okay, that's enough. And he closed some doors on me. I was really mad at him for a while. I stumbled into a music school that needed some sales and marketing help. was really on fire for their vision of not just making music about learning your scales and going to a little old lady's house and learning how to play piano, but really a community based focus on learning music and how music brings people together. And that was really cool. But come 2020, it was time for me to move on. I had outgrown the position, and my boss, and she's still a good friend of mine and a mentor, she encouraged me like, hey, you've kind of outgrown this position, like go find something else. And I just went on Indeed.com and I saw an ad, and it was between selling Lazy Boy recliners or this random job description that just said executive sales agent based out of a place at the airport. So I showed up one day, thought I was just going to be a glorified travel agent. Turns out I'm actually selling these pieces of machinery. I didn't know there was a market for used private jets. I thought you always just go to the factory and think much of it. And I just jumped in and I put my 2 weeks notice in at the music school. That was March of 2020. Maybe you see where this is going. The entire country shut down 2 weeks after I put my 2 weeks notice in, and the jet job said, "Sorry, Tom, you can't come in right now because the entire country shut down, and we don't know when we're going to open up back again." And so I found myself with 4 to 6 weeks of just sitting there. And we can talk about it later, but I had an option to either just sit there and twiddle my thumbs or take action. We chose to take action. Came into the office for selling jets, 6 weeks later, and hit the ground running, and just continue to find success for the next few years. And fast forward 3 years later, I left that agency, started my own brokerage, and here we are about 2 years after that, with a book, with a brokerage, continuing to serve clients in the sale and acquisition of pre-owned aircraft. And it's been a wild ride, and now I kind of find myself full circle where, in 2 weeks I'm gearing up to take my son who's in high school and my other two kids who are in middle school, taking them to a Christian camp, for a week in the summer. We'll be going on retreat together for the next couple of days. So we're back in ministry now, and to be honest, it feels good to be back in that spot.
Well, Tom, there's a lot to unpack in that
I
history.
was thinking that.
Wow, what a journey, and thank you for sharing. I'm curious to know how the loss of your father impacted you in your faith, because you talked about later being angry when the doors to the youth ministry closed, but I know when I lost my dad, I can remember driving back and forth in front of my church and swearing at the top of my lungs. I was really angry, and my dad was only 66, and I wasn't ready for him to make that transition to heaven. And so how did that impact you? How did that impact your faith? For some people, it can really deepen it, and for other people, it completely shatters their faith. So I'm curious to know how that affected you.
Yeah, so the passing of my father was interesting. He worked really hard, and I knew that he loved me because he worked really hard and was always encouraging of me, and he planted a lot of good seeds. And I over the years I'm like frustrated. I wouldn't say angry, but frustrated and saddened that I didn't get a chance to see those seeds mature and grow with him and spend time. It was actually just this past February, because he passed away in February, and my son was a freshman in high school. And so on February 19th, I took my oldest son out to dinner with my mom, who happened to be in town. And I said, like, dude, I wanted to take you out because now every single day from here on out is a day that I didn't have with my dad, and I want to treasure that, and I want to honor that. And so, for me, it brought me closer to my faith, because for whatever reason, so he passed away kind of unexpectedly. He slipped one day, broke his ankle, had surgery. 2 weeks later, President's Day weekend, I hear my mom yelling downstairs, and he was downstairs and having a pulmonary embolism. He had a blood clot to his lung, and
No.
the ambulance came and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of sudden. And I don't know if that was a good or a bad thing, but for whatever reason, the way that I processed it was sad, but I don't know. I guess I just very distinctly remember turning to God, and it's not that I was like a holy kid or anything, but specifically the prayer was, "I've heard people call you Father. Now you can be my dad." And that was just the reaction. And then, growing into high school, like at that summer, I went to my first, weekend long retreat that was up in Attleboro, Massachusetts. It was a big youth conference. We had hundreds of kids from around the Northeast, and it was really cool. The music spoke to me, the speakers spoke to me, and it was just a good community. And that just projected me forward. Really where I got pissed off with God was when, he told me, no more youth ministry. And I think it was the way in which he told me, because it was through the use of, or however you want to put it, I don't know the religiously correct way to say it, but it was through flawed humans within the church that door was shut on me, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so that's what hurt. It's like I gave my entire life, like I've given my family's life to this. I've sacrificed, my family has sacrificed, and here we are, and you're just going to turn your back on me and kick me out. That's when I found myself, like you, Easter Sunday, walking out of mass on Easter Sunday and be like, I'm done, and just sitting outside with my kid.
Wow.
Just being pissed off and criticizing everybody. And I didn't go to church probably like maybe I was in the building, but I wasn't in church probably for at least a year or two.
Wow. Yeah, that hit you hard. You said one of the things that you remember about your dad was that he was a hard worker. And I've read that you've said, and I don't know as succinctly as this, but what I've gleaned as I've gotten to know you is that your secrets to success are hard work, serving others, and a strategy of transparency. How many of those things do you feel like came from your dad, and how much of that was, where did you develop that formula for success, and how has that served you as a youth minister and now also in aviation as a jet broker?
I think it's a great question. I guess I would start off by saying, as far as my formula for success, I want to be 100% transparent. And, we have our core values at Jet Life Aero. One of them is humility, and one of them is transparency. And so in full transparency, yes, I found success. Yes, I have a track record. I sold, $100,000. I took home $100,000 from my first year of jet sales, selling 20 jets that year. The following year I did 20 more, 200 grand. The following year I did, almost over $500,000 selling 20 more jets. So I have that track record, but especially to the industry, people who have been in this industry for decades, I don't know if I would call myself an expert. I am a professional, and I have a track record, and I can guide people who are not as far along as I am. And I think that's where that kind of comes in, is that success leaves clues. So I just look at people that were successful ahead of me. So I know, my mom and my dad, they were older. So when my dad died, he was 68.
Yeah, wow.
And I was young. I was only 14 at the time. So they worked hard before they had me. And so we didn't really want for much. We were a middle class, New Jersey family because of all the hard work, because they just hard work and they saved their money and it paid off. And then I just kind of found other individuals online that espouse the same values. Gary Vaynerchuk, Grant Cardone, Alex Hormozy. These are the guys that I've been following for years and years and years. And earlier than that too. I remember, looking at the Gospels and kind of what they espouse as far as hard work and just, church and just being a man, that call of accountability, the call to greatness that the gospel gives each and every one of us. I read a lot of church documents, obviously, because, getting a master's degree, and a lot of the Catholic Church documents talk about that, what we were made for more. John 10:10, I come that they might have life and have it to the fullest. So this idea of a call to greatness, a call to be fully alive, these are the things that that caught my attention, and I was like, I want that. And then you just kind of reverse engineer it, like, well, if you're going to want that, if you look at it from the business world, you got to hustle and be disciplined, yada yada yada. But even in the interior life, like, you need that discipline, you need that prudence, and that all comes from the hard work. That's not even just. It's not even the hard work. Isn't like, rah, I'm going to go get it. Hard work is just doing the daily stuff, doing the daily stuff, and like with an extraordinary disposition of your heart. So like when I'm taking out the trash, if I recognize like I'm doing this for my family, and thank you God for the opportunity for the family, like that is hard work. I mean, I could just take out the trash and throw it and just do nothing, but I'm consciously surrendering to myself for my family, even though I just want to go lay down. That interior life, I guess that's all. It's kind of funny. I'm like unpacking all of this like live here because I haven't really thought about it. I've talked about it too much, but I appreciate the question, because I guess that's kind of where all the stuff comes from, is a deep sense that I think we all have for greatness, for fullness, for whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. How do you inspire that in your kids? What, because I think it's interesting sometimes. I've wondered many times, and I can't ask them the questions now, why my dad chose to support some of the things that he did. When I was 22, I started a pizza restaurant. He invested in that. I had 6 months of experience working at a Subway prior to making the decision that I was going to own my own restaurant. And I look now at my son, who's 22 years old, and I've just played in my mind, if he comes to me and, hey, Dad, I would like for you to co-sign on this location, this commercial lease, and buy the equipment and help me do this because I have this idea, this business idea that's going to work, would I support it? Or would I tell him he was crazy? And so I think with our kids sometimes, like, we want them to be great. And I don't know how my dad managed to support those things, because, without that, he could have shot me down. He probably should have shot me down. And so how do you do that with your kids? You're striving for it. You're achieving these things, but what's the plan for your kids to help them accomplish the same thing?
That's a great question. I think a couple of things. I think for one, I need to start with myself and set the expectations and let them see me do stuff. So I try to work out, and we work out at home. I go to CrossFit, like they see me waking up early, back in December, I did 75 hard. They got to see that. And I let them see me fail. I remember when I told my boss that I was quitting at the brokerage. I had him on speakerphone. My son, it was a weekend where I was flying I used to own a 172, and we flew a 172 to Jacksonville from Sarasota because I did not want to drive 4 hours. For the tournament weekend. We came back on a Sunday, landed at the office at the airport. I went into the office, and him and I cleaned out my office. And I called my boss when I was all done, and I said, "Hey, listen, I'm not coming in on Monday." And my son heard my boss basically tell me that it wasn't a good idea for me to leave. We'll put it kindly.
Yeah.
And I remember hanging up the phone, and I just saw my son, just his head in his hands, and he was just upset. I'm like, "What's wrong, buddy?" He's like, "I just don't like seeing someone being mean to my dad." And I was like, "Dude, like, yeah, this sucks, man, but just watch me. Just watch me for the next year. Watch how I'm going to respond to this." And so I think being vulnerable, being transparent with your kids, letting them see you struggle so they know it's okay to struggle. Like, If they don't have permission to struggle, I think it's a problem. And for what we have found, there's two good places for kids to struggle in a safe place. I think that's sports, and I think that's school.
Mm.
I think my oldest son, he's great at school, and because he's good at it, because he has a mind for it, like I can challenge him and watch him struggle with school, and it's safe because if he gets an answer wrong, it's like, okay, dude, like cool, like, but he can learn from that and grow. Some of my other kids, like if they struggle in school, it's almost like it causes paralysis, right? They get upset and they kind of shut down. Some people, it's different that way. So, but with my other two kids, soccer has been great. I mean, I used to coach them when they were little. Now they're on like super competitive teams. We go out and we train together, and no matter what team they're on, whether they make it or they don't. My one son got cut from the team this year. It's like, listen, we will take personal responsibility. We will go train. And if this is what you want, first of all, tell me this is what you want. And if that's the case, then we will take personal responsibility and we will move forward and learn. So that's kind of how I instill the hard work, the dedication. And what I need to do a better job of, and I think we started to, for some reason, like I was telling you earlier, a week or two ago, I really felt a call. Like I was really stressed at work. I was really stressed at home, money, all this kind of stuff. I had a deal that's been falling apart, for the last 2 months. Everyone's yelling at each other. And I finally said to God, I'm like, God, I can't do this anymore. I need you to tell me, like, what's the next move? What are we doing? Take this away from me. Like, help me figure this out. And I had a dream that night that was just, and the more I think about it, I thought at the time it was a dream where I was in a youth group and basically leading the youth group. And like, I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I remember being a youth minister. That was a good times. Like, I should do that again. That's like what I woke up thinking. But the more and more I think about it, we started actually praying at home, like in our living room, like once a day, just family get in here. Like, we're just going to say a quick Our Father. And like, that was it. And so again, it's being that example that, our main prayer as a family is, God, lead us closer to you, so that if you're at the center of this and we all get closer to you, guess what? We're all getting closer to one another as well. And so, it's a leading by example, and that's hard. It's much easier to go, hey, go play for this team, go hang out at this school, let them teach you. But then I think if we abdicate that responsibility to other people, we are leaving ourselves open to some really bad stuff.
What do they see you doing right now, Tom, that's difficult? What's the most challenging thing for you right now that they're watching you and just going, wow, not sure how Dad's going to handle this?
Handling them at bedtime. When I tell them to go to bed. I'm not sure how Dad's going to handle this one. That's a good way to put it. I think this business is one thing. I think we're only 2 years into Jet Life era, right? I mean, it started off where I was just going to sell jets on my own, and then it spurred into this thing where, people wanted to learn how to become jet brokers, and so it became a brokerage, and then it became like an educational thing, pulling back the curtain to help people who have no aviation background to buy and sell private jets, no experience necessary. And so I don't know if they see that. They've definitely seen, the lifestyle shift. And it's funny because we'll talk about like, things that we had done like 2 or 3 years ago when it was a really good market. We'll joke around like, hey, remember when we were rich and we went to Miami for a weekend with that hotel with the huge water slide? It's like, yeah, that's not going to happen right now. So they've seen a little bit of that, because we've kind of had to pare things back. I'm hoping they see a shift because I'm around more, being my own boss. Like that was part of wanting to leave, was because I wanted to be able to leave the office at 3:00, pick up my kids, go to soccer practice, and still be available. Like I'll still take phone calls, I'll still work in my car or whatever, but I didn't have to check in with somebody. Today, it's summer, and apparently I'm a glorified Uber. Not even a glorified Uber. I'm like less than a glorified Uber.
Yeah, you don't get paid.
I dropped him off at the beach, and with his girlfriend, and I was supposed to pick him up at 5 after the podcast, and he texts me and he says, "Hey, come pick me up now." I'm like, okay. So I hope they kind of see this stuff. But who knows?
Yeah. Tell me about the transition from just selling to being a broker. That's a different thing. Like just being Just being is got the wrong phrase, but being a salesperson of whatever it is different than leading a sales organization. And that's very different than being an educator. And so that's quite a shift there that you're making. I think it's more difficult than what most people imagine to create the processes and practices that do that, but then to document and then be able to share that in a way that's meaningful for people that they're willing to purchase, requires different sets of skills. So I would love to know about that transition and then what the vision is for that and what you're doing for people who desire to get into jet sales.
Yeah, for sure. I thought of a follow-up on the last question about what they see me struggling at. Two things. One would be exercise. You know, as I'm getting older, I can't beat them as much as I used to be able to beat them in like a run. Like my oldest is already faster than me. I did a competition that was a shooting competition and like a CrossFit competition combined. And my oldest son came with me, and all I had to do was one of the events was just lift up a 100-pound medicine ball and just throw it over a box. I couldn't lift the 100-pound thing. Like, it's just so awkward. I couldn't get a hold of it. And, you know, I was failing. He saw me fail on that. He saw me be like, fudge, like, just like, you know, complete exhaustion. Like, I can't do this. And, you know, I left and, you know, I was like, yeah, dude, like I failed, but I'm going to do better. They saw me become a pilot, you know, about a year and a half ago, which was, you know, something that was challenging. And now, starting in January, I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, and you start off as a white belt and you just get smashed. And they've come to classes, they've seen me get beat up. One of my kids actually does come with me now, and you know, he comes to me more regularly, so he sees me get beat up more regularly. But you know, again, showing them, you know, how what it's like to fail, I think is important, and how you respond to adversity. So yeah, speaking of adversity, this project of selling jets, running a sales organization, building a company or a brokerage that's kind of disrupting the industry a little bit. It's a lot. And again, I say again, and I think this is important, hopefully people listen to the whole entire interview, like, I'm not trying to set myself up like I'm the expert, I'm the only way, and I have all this experience and you need to come to me to become a jet broker. Like, no, like, do your thing. People have been becoming jet brokers without Tom for a very long time, and they've been doing it well, and they've been doing it successfully. So I wish you all the best if that's what you want to do. But if you're hanging out on YouTube and you want to learn how to sell private jets, well, I just happen to put in a lot of time, energy, and effort to pop up when you type that into Google. Like that's literally what I did. You know, former youth pastor, I sell jets. Here's my track record. You want to talk to me? Let's set up a call, and if you want to download my information, we can. If you want to learn how to be a jet broker, you can do it the free way, or you can do it the headache free way. And I'll help you either way. So that's kind of what we look at. And I agree. It's a lot of different hats to wear. I think what you find a lot in the aviation industry is people who are really good at sales. They work for someone, they become the top producer, they become the top dog, and then it's time for them to move on and they start their own thing. And all they really know is to do the sales, and they'll hand over the script that has been working for them for the past 3-4 years, and they just expect guys to either sink or swim. And that's about it. And the ones who can rise to the occasion, they're usually the entrepreneurial ones, the go-getters, and so they will become, you know, top dog, and then they'll move on, and the cycle kind of repeats. You've got, I think, the companies that see that cycle and want to break it because they want something more, the smart ones, just like you know, Jet Aviva, you know, you had interviewed Emily in one of your previous episodes. Like, you bring in someone like Emily who sees the bigger picture and says, okay, guys, like, if we want to grow this is what we need to do. And you input systems and processes and things of that nature to make that work. I'd love to find someone to help me, you know, with all that stuff. But I also do kind of enjoy that stuff, you know, coming into an organization, and I'm a maximizer. If you do a strength finders test for me, you know, I'm good at, give me something to start with and I will maximize it. So whether that's graphic design, taking a template and making it exactly what you want, or that's videography, you know, giving me the videos and I'll make, you know, edit it into something nice, and organizations, personal branding. Like, it's just, if you give me something, I can kind of make it more efficient. I can make it better. I can maximize it. That's part of my skill set. And so to be able to do that for my own company, I think is really cool and exciting. And then the teaching side, I don't know. I youth ministry. I was a personal trainer at one point. I was a soccer coach at one point. I just enjoy that stuff. And so having the three kind of plates that I'm spinning, like trying to sell jets on my own, trying to create systems and processes so this becomes a bigger thing that's bigger than just Tom, and teaching people, one-on-one or one-to-one or one-to-many. It keeps things interesting. It keeps things spicy. It's probably not as efficient as it could be. And it would be more efficient if I focused on a lane and just went, or it would be more efficient if I brought more people in to help me with that stuff, which I have. I mean, the video editing side, I record content and then my team just takes it. I mean, that's why I think we're almost at 1,000 videos right now on the YouTube channel for the Ultimate Jet. We have a lot of content, and that's just because I was able to offset, like, I'll make the content, you guys just make it look pretty and make sure it gets published at the time. So yeah, that'll probably be the next step, is just trying to find someone who wants to buy into this idea of building a brokerage that I think it's a real disruptor in the marketplace. You asked what the plan was, and I think we're changing the way that brokers, our vision is, we want to change the way that brokers are educated and trained. We want to change how they're compensated, and we want to change how they conduct themselves in the marketplace. And again, I'm not perfect, but I think I understand the principles enough to say this is how you should do business. And if you don't, then you're just held accountable. I mean, I got a deal right now that's kind of going south, and there's things that I had done that maybe I should have caught earlier, or I didn't say something the right way, or just things get messy. We're all humans. We all make mistakes, and I want to be able to learn from my mistakes personally, and I want other people to be able to learn from my mistakes before they even have to make them. That's the idea. So can we change how brokers are educated, how they're compensated, and how they conduct themselves? I think that's a well worth vision, and that's exactly what we're doing. How we do that, we can definitely talk about that as well.
Yeah. How difficult was it for you to author a book?
It was only difficult because if you tell me to make a video, like just hit record and go, like that's easy. It was taking that stuff and putting it into 100 pages that like made sense. I'm quasi working on my second book that's more geared towards brokers, and it's an interesting process because for me it's just about minimum viable product. Just get it out to the masses as quickly as possible. And so I try to make it as accessible as possible, but I also want to have a little polish so that the industry, people who have been doing it for years can say, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about, right? He's not just some boob with a YouTube channel that just says stuff. But I also want to make it accessible for the first time jet buyers, the guys that, for me, when I first was starting to learn, like I didn't know or care much about like, oh, what's the fuel burn, or what's the thrust rate of the engines, and what's the make and model number of the engines. Like I was like, how far does it go? How many people does it take? How fast does it go? Can it get me from point A to point B, and how much does it cost? Like those are the 4 questions I needed to know. So I just spelled them out in the book.
So if you're a first-time jet buyer, how important are some of those questions that you just threw out? Because obviously you're dealing with somebody that's had a lot of life success if they're at a point where they're purchasing a private jet, but they're probably now entering into a field that they know nothing about. And so what is your process for educating a customer, not just educating people that might want to sell for you or other brokers, but how do you educate your clients so that they end up at the best solution possible?
Well, it's interesting because the channel originally started based off of buyers asking me questions. I was about 2 years into my brokerage journey. I had some free time, if you will, because I wasn't feeling like my back was against the wall, and if I didn't make a phone call, I was letting my wife down, my whole family down. So I had the time, and I was getting these frequently asked questions. I'm like, let me just throw a video up. Like I like making YouTube videos anyway. I miss it. Let me get the lights out, the cameras, boom. And so it started out for buyers, but what I found out is it became a resource for sellers because they could put a face to the voice that was calling them. So as I would call sellers, I'd be like, hey, you can check out my YouTube channel and, see that I'm not, crazy. I'm a real person. But the process of educating the buyers, what I found is a lot of them had the same questions. And my market was basically sub $1 million jets. So most of them were first time jet owners. And so, yeah, by having a framework of how to come into it, I mean, with a car, you kind of know what you're getting into. But even that, like, do you want luxury? Do you want a sedan? Do you want a minivan? Do you want a suburban, a pickup truck? Like, there's all these kind of categories. With jets, people don't really know the categories. But what I was able to do was just think about, okay, under $1 million, what are we looking at? Well, it's probably a light jet. And the biggest difference is how many people, how many seats it's going to have in it, how new it's going to be, and if it's single pilot or not, and how far it's going to go. So that's where the 4 questions kind of came from. Like, what's your mission? How far are you going? How many people are you taking with you? And how fast do you have to go? And how many stops do you mind? And take it from there.
Do you find that people have thought through that in advance, or are these questions that they're like, oh, I just didn't even think about that. That's a thing. I can't just get in and go from here to New York on one shot if I want to.
Right.
I
right.
can't
Everyone's
put 12
different.
people in it anytime I want.
Exactly. There's everyone's different in terms of where they're coming in with experience. Some people have a friend that has a Falcon or a Gulfstream, and they're like, yeah, my budget's like $2 million. So I'm just like, okay. So everyone has a different, and that's what I kind of like about it, is that a lot of buyers are different. That's why we kind of go into, like, should you charter, should you buy, should you invest in the jet? What does that all look like? What is your ultimate goal? And that's why you should work with somebody that's an industry expert, because it's a brand new field, and that person should be somebody you can know, like, and trust, and that you feel comfortable with asking questions. In my opinion, they should have a heart of a teacher. I just don't want to work with someone, like, even when if I go shopping for a car, if the car salesman's like, let me tell you everything I know, or they're kind of pushy or whatever, I'm just like, nah, I'm good. I want to be comfortable with them. So one of the lessons I learned and that I teach our guys is sell how you want to be sold to, and that's what I do for buyers. I try to educate them the way I would want to be educated, and if they like that, they'll pick up the phone, they'll call me. Funny enough, the YouTube channel started as Jet Life with Tom primarily to educate buyers. It does do that, but the audience and the reactions from audience has been much greater on the want to become a broker side. So that's part of the reason why we started to shift the focus of the content from educating buyers to educating brokers. And there's a lot of crossover, so it still works out.
Yeah. What has the response been from your peers to what you're trying to achieve, how you're trying to educate?
Primarily positive from what they tell me, right to my face. I've heard whispers of, like, who is this guy? And that's one of the reasons why I put it out there. And again, hopefully you're listening to the whole interview, but I am not trying to position myself as like a guru or better than anybody else. I'm just me. And I'm further ahead than some people, and I'm willing to share my knowledge with some people. And if you want to become a jet broker 100% for free and do it all on your own, I will help you. That's exactly what our circle community is about. You can ask me any question you want. I will give you everything you need, tell you what you need to go get, what documents, whatever. This is not a, Tom's the best, or Tom's just trying to make money off of people that are ignorant about aviation. No, that's not the case at all. Like, I will train people. I'll train other brokerages, like, because I just genuinely like sales and marketing and the skills and the mindset about it. Like, I was just on the phone today with someone from another brokerage, and they're trying to put people on their charter certificate, and I was talking to them about their delivery, like, what's their script and how does it apply, and how can you tweak it just a little bit to maybe get a little bit better of a response. So I think overall the response has been positive. I've heard whispers of some of the old guard kind of being like, who is this guy? And, cautious about it, or, cynical about it. But I get it. That's life. I'm not here to make everyone happy. I'm just kind of here to do what I think, God's putting on my heart. And for whatever reason, the education path is where I'm at right now.
Where do you see that taking you in 5 years? What's the vision?
I'd like to see that Jet Life Aero has become a player in the marketplace that it has, like I said, it's transformed the way that brokers are educated. So it leads to a, not reform, maybe a reform, or at least it leads to a conversation of how are we educating our brokers, and how important is that, and how important is ongoing education. It leads to a change in how brokers are compensated. I mean, we have a very competitive compensation plan that I've never heard of anywhere else in any other brokerage. I think that's interesting, what that will do to the marketplace when other brokers hear about what we're doing. Like, will they want to come to Jet Life Aero? You know, they don't have to move. They can do everything from their cloud base. They can set up shop here and make a better commission split. I think that's interesting. That's intriguing. And I think how the brokers conduct themselves. I mean, we talk about our core values on a regular basis. And so my vision is in 5 years that we've done exactly that. And what does that actually look like? I mean, I'm happy with like 50 brokers, just calling through all different markets and becoming experts in those specific markets. And I get the opportunity to primarily focus on educating, best practices, streamlining, technology, sales and marketing training. Like, I'd love to see myself just kind of dedicated more to that. And then doing a few deals a year with the clients that, I've built up over the years.
Where do you see your journey in aviation taking you?
Like as a pilot?
Yeah. What's next? You're relatively new, right? Just been flying for a couple of years.
Yep.
Had a plane, sold a plane. Is there another plane in the future? What's your personal desires there?
No, once you get bit by the bug, you're done. There's always something bigger, faster, whatever. I got to work on my instrument. I had about 4 weeks probably where I was heavy into studying. I was trying to get into the written, but I just never pulled the trigger on getting the written done on the instrument rating. But that's on the radar. Getting my instrument. My next plane that I really want is a Piper Cherokee 6, the 300 version, with 5 seats in the back, so that I can actually take my entire family, when I want to go somewhere flying. That was the worst part about the 172. It's like I could never take my entire family with me. I could take my wife and 2 kids, or just the boys or just the girls, and that had limitations. So in the meantime, there's a potential fractional ownership on a Piper 128 that's got a really nice Garmin setup in it. It's like all glass, and I don't have much low wing time, so that would be cool to just to get my instrument in that and have access to a plane so I can fly around Florida. Like, I've got, whether my son's playing soccer or I've got client meetings I can go to, I'd like to have access to a plane again. I miss it. But the Cherokee 6 would be the next big, the big jump. And then one day, maybe a PC-12, just because you can fly that single pilot and everyone fits in the back. That'd be pretty sweet. Or a jet, but the PC-12 is a little bit newer, and I feel like that would probably be, if I had $2 or $3 million, probably go for a PC-12, just because I need the seats, like the 1SPs maybe, but it's getting old by that time.
Tom, my dad, in fact, on his headstone are the words, "Remember the little things," because he always invited us to remember the little things. And he believed that those were the things that made the biggest difference. If there were only a few little things that you could leave behind for your kids, what would you want them to know? What would you want them to remember about you? Or what are some tidbits for life that you would hope that they would live their life by if you could just leave just a few little things?
I would say having an abundance mindset. Like, there's always a solution. There's always a way out. There's always more. There's something else out there. Like, don't have a limited mindset to where you're always thinking about problems. I'm a glass half full. One of our core values, Jet Life Aero, is positivity. Glass half full, abundance mindset. Listen, if I don't get the listing and someone else does, okay, I'll go get another one. I'm not going to sit here and pout, all day because I didn't get the listing. If the deal doesn't go through, okay, that's up to me to go find another one. Like, let's roll. So abundance, I think, is important. Don't be afraid to fail. Just don't. We're all going to fail, and you never truly fail. You either win or you learn. And that's a mindset you got to have. Like, okay, why did I miss that shot? Why did I miss that goal? Why did that deal fall through? What can I do better next time? And then there was one more. not being afraid to fail, an abundance mindset. I'll have to come back to it. There was one other thing that was, it's been in my mind lately, but I just can't remember off the top of my head.
That's okay. That's part of being a dad, is not being able to remember those things when you need them
exactly.
the most, right? Tom, if people want to find you, if they want to learn how to be a jet broker, if they're interested in buying a jet, how do they connect with you?
The best place to go is YouTube. If you just, YouTube Tom Lelyo, Ultimate Jet Guide. If you just Google Tom Lelyo, the Ultimate Jet Guide, everything will pop up. So we have the YouTube channels at the Ultimate Jet Guide. If you want to learn how to be a broker, go to www.theultimatejetguide.com. Our brokerage is Jet Life Arrow. You could also check out jetlifearrow.com. They all kind of sync in together. And then if they're really serious about becoming a jet broker, my contact information is all there. My socials are all there. But the special community we have is circle.jetlifearrow.com. That's a good place to get started as well. So yeah, those are a couple places people can find me.
That's awesome, Tom. Thanks for your time today. And I love the advice on having an abundant mindset and not being afraid to fail. That is what plain success.
I remember it. No one can make you feel bad without your permission. No one can make you feel less. No one can make you feel inferior. No one can do anything like that to you without your permission. And it's hard, really hard. Believe me, I'm not saying it's easy. It's not to be flippant, but I do try to remind my kids of that a lot, because some of my kids really struggle with when they fail or they mess up on the soccer field or something. They get really down and they focus on the negative, and I'm just like, come on, dude, like you got this. Or when their brothers are being mean to them, it's like, hey, listen. Like, I know they're being mean and they're absolutely wrong and they will have consequences coming to them, but don't forget, no one can make you feel bad without your permission.
I love it. What a great way to wrap this up. Tom, thanks again for your time, for your wisdom, and for what you're doing in the world of jet aviation. I love it.
Thanks, Alan.